If you really check the reports, nonprofits are actually adopting AI faster than faster. Yeah, so yeah,
Wow.
you can look it up. It's super interesting. I mean, there are a lot of applications across the board for them. There's a lot of data to be analyzed. You're looking at a lot of communication. They have to be communicating with donors, communicating with like foundation, communicating with their communities. A lot of writing, a lot of grant writing, a lot of report writing. So a lot of the automation really helps them to save time. And as all these crazy things are happening in the nonprofit world, yeah, we have to be looking at how we can, yeah, utilize tools to increase impact, but also utilize tools to just save on time, save on money, right? If you can get things even 90% there, it's really, really, really helpful.
Today's guest is Jermaine Henry. He's the founder and CEO of Norus Technologies. Jermaine, it's wonderful to have you here today. Please tell us more about yourself, the company, and what you
Okay.
guys do.
Yeah, great to be here today. As you said, yeah, I'm CEO of Norus Technologies. We're a software development firm specializing in web apps, mobile apps for nonprofits and social impact companies. We've been around for about 5 years. Over those 5 years, we've done over 80 projects. So it's been kind of an exciting journey.
That's wonderful to hear. 5 years and 80 projects focused on nonprofits. What has that been like so far? Like how is it working in the nonprofit space?
It's been interesting, right? So before this, I was in startups. I ran a startup, raised VC, an LP in a VC fund. So I'm very exposed to that world. I saw the opportunity to become a service provider, and a lot of nonprofits were already in my network. So I just had that warm intro into the space. What I came in with a hypothesis that we can apply that same thinking around startup scale to nonprofits. So we're looking at like how technology can really scale the things that nonprofits are doing. And as I said, it's been an interesting journey. We've had some projects that have turned out amazing and some projects that have been okay. I think it's always dependent on, the situation and the clients. But yeah, it's been quite the interesting journey from like day one till now. And we've obviously been able to, work with bigger and bigger nonprofits and see that impact. But some of the stories are just amazing.
That's great. Let's go back in time a bit. When you were first thinking, "Hey, I think I might have something here." Like I know there's an opportunity within the nonprofit world for web development. What was that moment like when you're like, "I think I'm going to start a company around this and I think I'm going to just go for it."
Yeah, so funnily enough, like, I got started on a really good foot. What happened was we were doing some for-profit freelancing, me and my business partner at the time. And then, yeah, we're just like, oh, let's reach out to some people in our network, reached out to a few people. The nonprofit space specifically stood out as very receptive during that time. That was also during COVID when a lot of people were doing that investment into technology. We reached out and, it really clicked with us that there was a need in the space. Did a lot of research and there was nothing I would say in the space that stood out to us in it on the technology front in terms of custom technology. So we're like, okay, well, this seems like a great opportunity. We have people within our network. We have warm leads. Why not take on the challenge, right?
Yeah. And I talk to a lot of people that would love to be in that position where they have a network that's feeding them business. I've talked to a couple people that have built pretty good sized businesses around warm leads and referrals. But as you think about, branching out and trying to, tell your brand story elsewhere, drive maybe more cold leads and turn those into warm leads and then hopefully future customers, what are some of the things that you're doing right now? And then what are some of the things that you would say, I've tried before, I'm not sure if it was really for me. Just kind of walk me through what that
Okay,
looks
cool. I
like.
mean, I'd love to tell a story, and the story it's a story that
Yeah.
everybody like in this kind of space has gone through a service provider, right? You start off really well, all the warm referrals, you scale, you have that referral pipeline and it's like enough to sustain business. And then you start to move and you start to scale a little bit more and you realize that there's a drop off in referrals or you've just outscaled. So I think all of us have like walked through that stage. So when that happened, what I did was to go back and do what worked initially, which was now we have a few years under our belt. We have some great stories. Let's put together some case studies and like let's do this warm outreach again, right? Like it's the I'd say the very manual, easy, low hanging fruit. And it's always the advice I give to anybody. Like early on, like go in your Google contacts, download everybody you've ever emailed, put them into a spreadsheet, categorize them into some kind of CRM, and then just like start doing like contextual outreach, right? So that was like the first thing. That worked out well for us, got us through that chasm. And now, we're implementing a few other things that will allow us to grow. So as you said, like I'll talk about a few things that worked and a few things that didn't work. The first thing that didn't work for us, I think, is cold email. And I think I got some insights from a few people around what was working for us, what wasn't. I think the reply rates were a little bit low for us. And I think also just learning a little bit more about the space, the nonprofit space specifically. A lot of them are just like, hey, like they get pitched by so many vendors. It's hard to differentiate yourself. One, it definitely is something that, what I'm feeling about the space just generally isn't something that they're receptive to. So we've seen very low uptake with that. Something that's worked for us is lead magnets, right? So we had a problem with just like the onboarding of clients. So we do websites as a service line, something that we kind of built in a few years ago. And every time we brought a client on, the initial planning of the website, they're like, hey, I want a website, but the planning wasn't necessarily fully fleshed out. There was a few holes in the process. I was like, okay, what if we build a tool, a small AI tool that can help them to do website planning, right? We built it out, tested it for internal use, and then we started getting organic traffic to it, right? Some people are just like going on, they're filling their stuff out, we're capturing their information, and then we're like, turning them into customers. Yeah, we've had some success with that, and we had clients come from all over the world. So we had a client come from like Perth, Australia. They came up, they're like, we're doing a
Wow.
AI course. We need a new website. They started searching for a few things, came across your tool, used it, and they became our client, right? So great things. So we're like, okay, cool. Let's now, work on getting that out. So we're doing meta ads um to a landing page. We have two options. I mean, we have two great channels there. One, we're directing them to the lead magnet. Two, we're adding them to our email list and re-engaging and nurturing from that side. We are just starting that out. We'll see how that goes, but it's worked organically. So putting a little bit of fuel behind it, I think, is important and probably, it has a higher chance of success, right? And I think the advice to anybody before you go out and try anything new that you're not familiar with, what about the things that are working for you already? Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think they get a little bit of FOMO. I think they're like, well, this is working, yes, but yeah, I know this company over here that tried this and like they said that the results skyrocketed, but it's like, what did they do? What was their offer? If they were sending cold email, how many were they sending? Sometimes, 10,000 a month, it sounds like a lot, but maybe you need to be sending double that. So there's always different ways to unpack that, but yeah, I think it's really important to stick to what you know works until it doesn't, and then scrap it and find the next
Yeah. And
thing.
I mean, yeah, I'll also say like hire an expert. Like it sounds crazy, it sounds like a big deal, but not everything is DIY. Like for me, like my clients come to me because they're like, hey, I prefer an expert to do the thing that I could probably do myself. It would take them a little bit longer, it's a longer, steeper learning curve. They run into a lot of errors, right? So for cold email, I think when we're ready to approach that again, we get to a cold email expert, somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who understands benchmarks. But yeah, if we're ever to engage on cold email again, I'd say would work with an expert, somebody who understands offers, somebody who understands infrastructure, somebody who understands benchmarks. So we can get better results, and then we can also analyze those results to pivot and move through the process. So yeah, for the meta ads that we're doing right now, we're hiring a marketing consultant, right? We have the basics, we understand the basics, but time is money, and we would prefer to, shrink that time for us to understand what's working and what's not working to kind of move around, right? I don't think any one channel is the supreme channel or any one channel is the channel that works for everyone. I think marketing and sales is always an iterative process. Like anything that you're going into, see it as an experiment. Use the first month, 2 month, 3 months as benchmarks, as data for what you do next.
Yeah, definitely. And hiring an expert for that field, I think, is super important. You know, just because you have access to a tool doesn't mean you know how to use it well. Like, just because we have driver's licenses and most of us drive cars doesn't mean we're like the best drivers or
Exactly.
we're expert drivers and can get in a race or anything. So yeah, I think that's a really smart approach. The other thing too that I think a lot of people aren't thinking about as much as they should be is the data that you're using, the quality of the data. There are some tools out there, some older ones. I don't I don't want to name them specifically, but I'm sure everyone's heard of them. They're fairly costly and they claim that, you know, they can give you the most up-to-date records and contacts and all of that. And maybe at one point they could, but in my experience, they and their competitors have failed. I think what's really working now is looking at data with intent signals and looking at people that are in market that fit a certain category and building a live list that can auto update and sync to your email systems, to your paid ad campaigns, and really hone in on that right person at the right time. So taking things even deeper. So that's always something interesting to consider when you're looking at launching new campaigns for any sort of inbound, outbound. So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about the story in the sales process because like you mentioned just a moment ago, like your space is it's a bit crowded and differentiation can be hard. So when you do have this unique thing to where you focus on nonprofit. So in my mind, that's a key differentiator right there. You're kind of a pure play and specialized in that respect. But when you think about, you know, you're starting a cold conversation, like you get someone on a discovery call, they're probably going to ask you about your work and what you've done. How do you tell the story about what makes you different from other people or other companies that are similar in the market and essentially like why they should work
Yeah.
with you?
I mean, it's going to be processes, first of all. Everyone can say this, but the great thing about niching down is that you can tailor your process to the kind of organizations that you're working with. So we have a very intense design and discovery process. So there's a lot of alignment that has to happen, right? Especially for a lot of these organizations who aren't necessarily technologically like savvy, especially the smaller ones. Yeah, so you want to get as much alignment early on. So we've iterated this process over many years of, going through design, going through user flows, going through UX, very intently before every project. So that's one. And then the second thing I'm going to talk about is agile. So we use agile project management practices. We're doing demos every 2 weeks. Like we're building and doing demos every 2 weeks to keep the clients in the flow. They're up to date with everything that's happening. They're able to give feedback. So we have a project that's, 6, 7, 8 months. Where by the time we get to the 8th month or the final month of the project or even the deadline, it's not like you've never seen it before. It's not like you've never used it before. So, we have that iterative like feedback loop that, keeps on going. And then I'd say finally is impact. So if I'm having a conversation, I always want to refer to just things that we've done in the space, right? So good case studies, obviously make a world of a difference, but also how you communicate those case studies verbally in a very short time also matters, right? So if you understand your audience, you're thinking about the things that are important to them and you're vocalizing, those things. So for a lot of the nonprofits, what we're thinking about is service delivery, right? The service that you're providing to your community or to, the the community that you care about or the persons impacted by your services, you want to, increase that scale that without, with a marginal increase in cost or no increase in cost of service delivery. So we've had a client where their service delivery efficiency went up by 90% after we work with them, right? I reference that the case study all the time, talking like, hey, we had this client, they were doing this manually, work with them for 6 months, built out the system, and now, they've gone from a 48-hour turnaround time for the service delivery to 30 minutes. Big difference. And that really gets everybody like interested in how can we do this for our organization, right? But I think it's all about the value prop. Like you want to know what your value prop is for the niche. And I think that's again, the big benefit of having a relatively narrow client base, and relative it's always relative, but relatively narrow client base, it's really easy for you to think about the things that you want to put in front of them and the language you want to use.
Hmm. That's incredible. Those are huge results. Is that something you've ever thought about offering, like when you're thinking of offer and value prop, like maybe putting more guarantees for lack of a better word, like more like we guarantee if you customer you do XYZ, we're going to hold up our end of the bargain. And if you do XYZ, we guarantee, you'll see a 90% reduction in service delivery. Have you ever thought about
I
creating
would
something
say
like super enticing
it's
like
it's
that?
uh it's interesting. It's never something that I've thought about it, but I've never like put it down. Again, if we're doing very straightforward like uh packages, then that would probably work. But we're doing a lot of custom work. The impact is going to be different based on the stage of the organization. What the system we're implementing is going to be. It's an internal system versus something that people on the outside are using. So there's so many variables that I'm just like, let me not throw a guarantee out there. What I will do is we'll say, okay, well, we'll provide you support and measurement beyond launch. So we'll be able to actually see what has changed during that time, and then also, within that time, fixing and kind of working on anything that may not be fully aligned when it really gets out there in the wild. So no guarantees, but what we'll do is we'll work to ensure that we have alignment, we understand what your goal is, and even after the launch, we provide some time to ensure that we're measuring for that goal and continuously, providing you with support to ensure that you're hitting what you need to.
That's good too. It's like it's tying it back to the ROI, like tying it back to the goal and seeing that you're delivering on that goal. So in my mind, that's a nice return on
Yeah,
investment. And that's very attractive as well. So when thinking about your customer base, and we talked a little bit about niching down, because nonprofits, the space is
yeah.
fairly large. Have you thought about narrowing further, or do you think like that might be too narrow for you and maybe limit you a
I would
bit?
say that uh, very specific lines within nonprofits that we do work with. So it's health, some community fundraising, and like food insecurity. Like those three things have been a bulk of what we've done. And we've been able to leverage case studies and experience and even referrals, right, within those spaces to, continuously grow our expertise and work on, kind of getting deeper in those spaces. But we've done a lot of work in maternal health specifically.
Any customers you want to call out or
I would
mention?
say, yeah, Common Sense Childbirth. So run by Jenny Joseph. She is Time Woman of the Year for like 2023. So we've done a lot of great work with her, some impactful work, and she's referred us to many people in that space. Yeah, referring to her like as a figure. Even when we go on to a sales call, like, yeah, we work with Jenny Joseph. If anybody in maternal health is having a conversation with us and we mention her name, there is a great chance of just like building that trust and that understanding of what we're capable of and the people that trust us. Like, I think the simple thing is always business is about trust. It's about you trusting that I can deliver and I trust that you can pay me. Those are the only two things that matter fundamentally when it comes to business.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So in my mind, with and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I personally think of the nonprofit space and my experience working with them, I don't think of them as like the most tech tech savvy, the most innovative. I kind of see them also kind of like they're kind of similar to real estate in my mind. Like they're just a little bit slow to adopt new technology and systematize things. So has that been your experience working with nonprofits? And if not, like, you know, what have you been impressed by working with them? Like, what have you seen as far as their level of, um, just their level of technology, web development, and then of course I'm going to ask you after you answer about AI and like how you're incorporating that and how they view that. But yeah, just from your experience working with them, what has it been like in trying to explain technical things and the value of those different projects and things that you've been working on
Yeah,
with them?
I would say it's been it hasn't been as difficult as people would think. A lot of nonprofits use technology platforms. When we think about nonprofits, I think we're thinking about lots of grassroots organizations. But beyond the grassroots organization, there's so many big nonprofits that employ, hundreds of people. They have to, have systems in place. And then even the grassroots organizations, they are using, different technology platforms to provide service delivery. So you'd be very impressed if you really jumped in. You'd be very impressed about how technologically savvy some are. I'd say for the ones that haven't really done anything custom, they aren't very familiar with technology. That is the whole point of design and discovery. During that time, we spent a lot of time just understanding each other, seeing where your level of technical knowledge is, explaining things, explain how things will work and how workflows will work all throughout, right? And always making reference points to very familiar technologies. So that's one. And then on the AI front, super interesting. If you really check the reports, nonprofits are actually adopting AI faster than faster than for profits. So yeah, you can look it up. It's super interesting. I mean, there are a lot of applications across the board for them. There's a lot of data to be analyzed. You're looking at a lot of communication. They have to be communicating with donors, communicating with like foundations, communicating with their communities. A lot of writing, a lot of grant writing, a lot of report writing. So a lot of the automation really helps them to save time. And as all these crazy things are happening in the nonprofit world, yeah, we have to be looking at how we can, utilize tools to increase impact, but also utilize tools to just save on time, save on money, right? If you can get things even 90% there, it's really, really, really helpful. In terms of using AI from our side, the big thing about us is we always do things ourselves before we give it, before we do anything with anybody else, right? So as I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier, we built a AI website planning tool that has been beneficial to a lot of our nonprofit clients and, even persons who've come across it. And then we've also been working on AI tool for chatbots. So we're working on nonprofit chatbots specifically for organizations that provide community support. So we mentioned that we do a lot of work in maternity health. So a few of our maternity health clients have already signed up for this chatbot platform that they can add to their websites, utilizing their knowledge base and the tone and context specifically built around like nonprofit, right? So we're trying to also leverage our expertise to put tools into the ecosystem that can help. So we're testing it out with about 6 different organizations now, getting feedback, and we should be able to kind of launch that out into the public, I guess, later in the summer. And this is also a big hedge for us because software development might not be around in 4 or 5 years, right? Things are moving so quickly that we might, become irrelevant in a few years. And for everybody who's listening to this, we might have to be thinking about what can you do now that you can think about in 4 years and will still be around because, all of our jobs are in danger.
Yeah. Not to scare anyone.
True.
Yeah, you've got to adopt AI and like try to fit it into as many places in your business as you can, certainly. So that's great to hear that you're using it on the dev side.
One is we're using AI for rapid prototyping. So we talk about the alignment and design and discovery, and getting clients to really feel things out before they, commit to some of the choices. Rapid prototyping using platforms like Bolt and V0 has also been helpful to us to get alignment and even in sales, right? Conversation with a client, we're doing a product brief. I say, okay, based on your conversation, this is the platform that you've described, because a lot of clients don't come with technical requirements. So we're able to use AI to generate that from information on calls. And then once they confirm, we're using that to generate prototypes that we can like, hey, this is a visual representation of the workflows and a visual representation of the platform that we discussed, right? So that's helped us to also move the sales process along relatively quickly, get alignment, and then once we're moving into that design and discovery, it's a great opportunity to transfer that knowledge to the design team and then, to the dev team. So we have that continuity of information and flow, and that's all thanks to AI.
That's amazing. Yeah, I bet that saves a ton of
Yeah, yeah,
time
yeah, yeah. You
on your
have to
side as
admit.
well. That's great to hear. One more question for you. In the next 6 to 12 months, what do you want to see? And this could, like, where do you want to take the company? And this could be from a business development standpoint, a customer acquisition standpoint, a product and feature release standpoint. What's on the docket and where do you
Okay,
want to be?
so that is a super interesting question. Number one, we want to have automated funnels for all service lines, right? We started working on one now. So we want to work on lead magnets for all our service lines, ensure that we have evergreen offers and evergreen funnels that just have us filling up our pipeline consistently. So that's one big deal. Two, I'd say diversification by, again, getting this AI tool out, offering it to our existing clients, offering it to the market, seeing what uptake from that is like. And then I'd say the third thing is just to become so efficient that scale doesn't mean new people, but it just means increasing capacity, utilizing AI tools and utilizing new processes that use the power of these tools.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think that's in line, like giving your team the ability to do more with less, I think is what a lot of people are working on. So it's great to hear that you're thinking about things through that lens as well.
I think that, yeah, I think everybody who's like in a small to medium sized space, this is a great space for them and a great time for them because now they can think about scaling in a non-traditional way and they can think about efficiency in a whole different light, allows them to keep headcount low, allow them to, service more clients, allow them to bring in more clients. And then, yeah, I mean, pay your people more, increase your market share, and just create a better company that is, has longevity and can provide value to the clients and also the people who are working with you.
I think that's the mission that everyone should be trying to fulfill. Fantastic. Jermaine, it's been a pleasure to have you here today. I really enjoyed the conversation. If anyone wants to reach out or get in touch, learn more, how can they find you? What's the best thing to
I
do?
mean, you can check out our website, norustech.com, norustech.com. You can find Norus Technologies on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Jermaine Henry. Yeah, and you can just reach out via email, jermaine@norustech.com.
Perfect. I hope people reach out and I hope that you get some good leads and business from this.